Hi, Paul Thompson here from Spitfire Audio. Something very exciting for you today. It's our Symphonic Motions plugin. This is a string orchestra that is solely dedicated to solving the problem of playing rhythmic rebowing in your pieces. This is something that is notoriously difficult to achieve with samples. Here we have 7 different playing styles, playing techniques, and 6 different overlay samples that you can use to play and accent certain parts of the chords. Let's dive straight in and I'll explain more about the plugin as we go along. Let's start by having a look at the grid. Okay, so I've just got a preset up at the moment. So I'm going to command click on one of the pegs here in the pegboard just to select the same playing style across the whole keyboard. And you'll see that the keyboard occupies the x-axis of this pegboard and the playing styles and different rhythms occupy the y-axis. If we start at the bottom of the grid, I've command clicked one of the pegs here along this line of 1/6 notes. So these are triplet feel and the bowing is separated. Now, as you can see, directly above this is another row where there's a little slur symbol next to the 6th, and that means that the bowing will be very, very smooth. So you can still hear the rebowing, and this is the kind of thing that is so difficult to do with normal sample libraries. It's very, very clear where the bows are changing, and it sounds absolutely realistic because it is a real performance. Now, this is not a phrase library. These are cellular performances which you can then use to create your own music. It's very important to remember that. It's incredibly versatile in that way. Let's keep going up the grid, and the next one up we're going to try is the 8th notes. So as you can hear, I'm just kind of busking along. I'm just changing the chord where I feel the next note is going to go. When you program this into your digital audio workstation, it's very easy to just line things up. If you play something and it's slightly out of time, you can just slot it back in onto the grid. There is also a function within the plugin which allows you to quantize the input to the plugin as the sequencer is going. Now I'm going to leave the detail of that to our fabulous CX team to explain in their how it works video. However, one thing I will do is show you, as we're running at the moment at 100 BPM, if I put the tempo up to say 140 BPM, then you can see that the plugin tracks the BPM that is being entered and changes accordingly. If I go back down to 90 BPM, and even down to 60 BPM, and you can hear the quality is incredible, even going to the kind of extremes. Let's take it right up to 180 BPM, 3 times faster than that. Still sounds incredibly realistic. So the plugin is matching to the host tempo and it's selecting from a pool of samples behind the scenes to ensure that you get the most realistic sound playback, whatever tempo you're working at. So let's just listen to the 16th notes, and we're back at 100 BPM now. So I'm just playing along with chords and things at the moment and just kind of having fun. And it's great for that kind of inspiration. We're still only using a single sound at a time. So when we come into kind of mixing up the sounds in a minute, you'll see how this can provide a really fertile source of inspiration. But for now, just consider it's not just about making these kind of ostinato style rhythm sections. But you can also use this. It matches incredibly well because it's recorded in the hall at Air Lyndhurst. You can use it in conjunction with our symphonic and chamber strings libraries, and it just sits in perfectly. The band size is 12 first violins and 10 second violins, and then 12 cellos. Now, omitting the violas and basses allows us to keep the symphonic feel, but to have absolute precision in there and a clarity of sound that if we had the whole string section playing these parts at the same time would start to be lost. Here we're able to keep that kind of crisp and precise feel by limiting the number of players, but still feel the full epic, filmic sensation of that kind of size of a string section. So next we're going to listen to the 12th notes, or 8th note triplets, in other words, in the sol pont section. Now this means on the bridge, sol ponticello, and when you play closer to the bridge you get a very much more nasal, it can be very aggressive, but it's a kind of thinner sound. I'm going to open up the overlay menu as well, and I'm going to change that to sol pont as well, and we'll talk about overlays in a minute. Just listen to this. As you can hear, the note that I'm using as the overlay is also sol pont. Now this is a whole separate section of the library you could even use on its own. But these are perfect for accenting certain notes to give you groups of notes within the pattern that you're using. Next up we have some fabulous pizzicato. Next up is consort. Now this is short for consordino, or with the mute. These are little rubber mutes that are placed onto the bridge of the instrument, and it dampens down the strings as the player is playing and gives a very soft and mellow sound. The soltasto playing style is where the players bow over the fingerboard, and again this changes the sound of the strings and it becomes a very, very soft and delicate whispery sound. With col legno we have the players striking the strings with the back, or the wood, of the bow. Now of course you don't have to use the same overlay as the articulation that you're playing, the playing style that you're using. You can change it. So if I change this to a spiccato, or a kind of hard bowing, but then allow the col legno to sit behind it, I get this effect. So you can get really creative there and combine two very different sounds for a specific effect. Now here is a fun section we've called ostinato, and this is using different note patterns to create a kind of ostinato feel. Now you have these in 1/6 and 1/8 patterns. Now as you can hear, the first one was a simple major second rise. Here we have a major third rise. And then our third pattern is the minor second. And finally a minor third. And as I mentioned, each of those with the two different rhythms, the 6th notes and the 8th notes. The 6th is effectively, we might call it a kind of crotchet or a quarter note triplet. Now you'll have noticed down here we have a randomize section, and this has really expanded from the thing that you'll be familiar with from our normal Evo Grid plugins. Here we have a selection of different options that you can select within to randomize. So within the visible section here, you can walk your selection up and down. So each individual node randomly goes either up or down by one step. You can pick from the 16th note patterns, the 12th note patterns, and the 8th note patterns, even down to the 6th triplet patterns. We can randomize solely within the sol pont section, within the consordino muted section, just within the normal section, Now, as you can hear there, you're starting to combine with this random element the very smooth bowings and separated bowings as well. If you are playing a part and it's given you an inspiration and there's just one thing that doesn't quite work, it's incredibly easy to identify by pushing the note that you played, and I can see it's this cell that's triggering, and I can change that to a different articulation, and then my chord will sound different. So it's very, very easy to tweak things that have been randomized already. You can go solely with the smooth bowings and then with the discrete bowings, those separated bowings we just listened to. And then you've got hard and soft playing styles. Feeling Lucky just gives you a random selection across the entire range. So let's have a listen to how that sounds. Now, if we go back to our 8th note normale, which sounds like this, there's a fantastic effects section which you can use to add or take away reverb, to add some delay, change the settings on that, and also a tape saturation section. But also there is the mic section here and the ADSR. Now, the simplest thing to check out first is to look at the ADSR. So I'm going to change the attack so that we get a smooth build up. And if I play very softly so we don't hear the overlay at the beginning, you can hear how we've shaped the sound at the start there. Just to mention, it is possible to select no overlay at the start of the note. Very, very simple. Let's go back to our mics. Let's pull the attack right back down so we hear a nice crisp start. And let's have a listen to the 3 different basic microphone options. So you can hear that the instruments are panned into their seated position, their normal position. Let's check out the most ambient setting. And we can use all 3 to get our preferred balance of sound. Or you can simply use one of the mix mics. And then command click that, you'll see that that has turned all of the other microphones off. Now we can listen to the first mix. The second mix, or the third mix. So there's a fantastic variety of sound to select from there. So to finish, I've gone back to my pizzicato, mixed up a selection of different rhythms, and here we go. So tons of creative fun, as you can see. Now the plugin occupies these 2 separate spaces. On the one hand, it's really fantastic at these very ultra realistic symphonic rebowings or pluckings, which you can use either on its own or you can blend them into other sample libraries, other string libraries, to just replace those parts where you have that kind of fast action thing going on to give you an absolute feeling of realism. But it's also great for the kind of inspirational side of things where you can just randomize or set up your own grid and then just start playing and ideas will start to come to you. And this is a great cue starter. It's a great way of combating the kind of blank page syndrome and getting going. It really generates a lot of ideas that way. It's also fabulous if you want to use it in its purest sense as a kind of rhythm machine to give you feelings of this John Adams or Steve Reich style music. It's absolutely perfect at that kind of thing as well. I hope you've enjoyed this brief walkthrough. Thank you very much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Bye-bye.